which is going to be talking about DeMar DeRozan. Now, a lot of people, a lot of Raptors fans, they love DeMar. A lot of Spurs fans, they don't know really how to feel about about DeMar DeRozan, and in my personal opinion, DeMar, he's a like I don't want to disrespect him, but he's sort of like, nah. Like he's a great player, don't get me wrong, but his play style is just like it doesn't really fit in today's league. And honestly, if he were to participate in any generation of the NBA, I think if you put him on the 90s, like on a 90s roster, he would be considered one of the best players to ever play the game. Like his play style, I would say, is arguably like the closest thing we have to Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan in this again, just in this league. I'm not saying that he is the closest thing to Kobe and Michael Jordan. That is not what I'm saying. I am saying that in this league, his play style is very similar to those players. Not saying that he is on that level whatsoever. And the fact that he's playing on the Chicago Bulls makes him seem even more like Michael Jordan. But with that out of the way, let's talk about the game. Let's talk about the actual game itself. So DeMar DeRozan, he ended the game with 46 points, and with this 46-point game, he also ended up forcing overtime by hitting a game-tying shot against the Pacers. And the Pacers, it's not like they were playing bad. I mean, Halliburton wasn't scoring. Again, Halliburton is extremely overrated in my opinion. He's not the scoring machine that he was when the in-season tournament was going around. And I mean, he still gets his assists, which is really the best thing about it. However, like his scoring is it's not as potent as a lot of people thought it was. And with this game, DeMar DeRozan passes three players in the all-time scoring list. I'm just going to pull up those three players right now. One second. So he passes Adrian Dantley, Dwayne Wade, and Elgin Baylor in the all-time scoring list after last night's game. Now, this is very unexpected. Like I didn't really expect I expected him to definitely pass those players eventually. I didn't really expect him to do it in one game, however. And it's sort of one of those things that it's like he's one of those players that's a little bit underrated because of his playoff history. Like a lot of people don't really give him the credit that he deserves, and a lot of people don't really give him the attention that he deserves, mainly because of his problems in the playoffs. Like he is mostly known for being um LeBron's doormat, for lack of a better term. I mean, he every single year he was on the Raptors, he ended up losing to LeBron James and he ended up underperforming in the most important games. And then the very season that he left or that he got traded, that's when the Raptors won their first ever championship. So, he's been full of he's been very unfortunate in throughout his career. And it's not like he's a bad player in the regular season. It's just once the postseason rolls around, he's not the same monster that he usually is. And that sort of takes a toll on how people perceive him and people's opinions on him. Because a lot of people now, they only really and a lot of fans, a lot of the media, they only care about what you do in the postseason. You can thank Kawhi Leonard for that. But they only care about what happens in the postseason, that they fail to acknowledge everything else that happens in the regular season. And failing to acknowledge everything else that does happen in the regular season is sort of disrespectful, especially when it's something like this, because Dwayne Wade is a top, actually he is the third best shooting guard in NBA history. Forget top 3. He is the third best shooting guard in NBA history. And DeMar DeRozan just passed him. And this is also he's also this high on the scoring list without taking as much three-pointers, because that's another aspect of his game that a lot of people don't really like, and a lot of people don't find as impressive, because since he is such a mid-range assassin, like obviously he is going to take a lot of mid-ranges, but in an era where you're supposed to shoot the three ball a lot more, he sort of stands out and is like, meh. I mean, he doesn't shoot the three ball that much. So how much value can you really get out of him? And I had this talk yesterday about like the mid-range shot. Being overly reliant on the mid-range shot is not something that can be stable long term, simply because like your shot is going to change like practically every single time unless you can get to a specific spot every single time. And again, the shot changes every single time when you shoot in the mid range, and it's not as reliable as as taking a layup, which he's also very good at. He's very good at posterizing defenders, and he's all of those categories he's great at. It's just performance in the playoffs. You can't really do much with DeMar in the playoffs. It's a little bit sad to see. Like when he was on the Raptors, his very last year in 2018, he led the Toronto Raptors to the best record in the entire Eastern Conference. However, it took 6 games for them to beat the Wizards. It took them 6 games to beat the Wizards, and the Wizards that year, they had 3 less wins than the Nuggets, and the Nuggets weren't in the playoffs in 2018. And then they meet LeBron James, and they get swept. You guys knew I was going to talk about LeBron James. I'm going to talk about him for 2 segments. They get swept by LeBron James, the greatest, and he was on his greatest postseason run. A lot of people consider 2018 LeBron James in the playoffs as the greatest basketball player and the best basketball player to ever touch a basketball court. He did it all by himself. He ended up outscoring both DeMar and Kyle Lowry in points and almost matching them in assists. So if that doesn't scream meltdown, I don't know what does. And in that series, that was they were the only team in the Eastern Conference that could not get a win against LeBron. And it's like this isn't the first time. It's like every single year they always run into LeBron and they always underperformed. And it's always DeMar's fault. 9 out of 10 times, it's always been the fault of DeMar and him not playing to the best of his ability. And it's not like his teams aren't good, because, again, number 1 seed in the East, and in 2016, I believe, they were the number 2 seed in the East. And they still, they just kept underperforming. Again, when no one was really going to stop LeBron, so I can't really, I can't really say much, but it's not like DeMar was doing anything to help them either. It was just a thing, and it also doesn't help that the Raptors immediately afterwards, after they trade him and after they get rid of him, they end up winning the whole thing, and it's not something that helps his case. I mean, I guarantee you he was furious when he ended up finding out, wow, my former team just won the championship without me. Was I the problem? That's probably the thoughts that was going on in his head. And it could really damage your psyche. But more so on this game, Miles Turner, I'm talking about the Pacers now. Miles Turner ended the game with 27 points. Siakam ended with 17. So did Halliburton. And there wasn't really, there were a lot of shots, obviously, like the Pacers. They obviously were going to take a lot of shots. But the defense, again, very, very bad. They allowed DeRozan to get 46 points. And not saying that DeRozan is a bad player, but 46 points, that's a lot of points for just one person. And some reason, okay, that was just about to say, my OBS was frozen for some reason. I have no idea what that was, but okay. So, anyways, back to what I was saying. DeRozan, 46 points, and they allowing them. they constantly always allow players to go off. I don't understand why the Pacers just don't value defense. It's going to hurt them, especially if they decide to match up against this team again in the play-in, because looking at the standings, the Pacers are the 7th seed and the Bulls, they're the 9th seed. So a couple more games and a couple more wins could see them matching up against each other in the postseason, in the play-in tournament. And that's something that you definitely don't want as a Pacer, because all of the teams that are in the play-in, minus the Hawks, they have a very good chance of beating the Pacers, because the Pacers, they just are terrible on defense. And it blows my mind how terrible a team this good on offense can be so lackluster on defense. I just don't understand. And it's not even that they have bad defenders, because Miles Turner has had several seasons where he's led the league in blocks. It's just the team is lazy, and overall, being lazy is not something that you could afford to do. Alex Caruso also had a great game against the Pacers, 9 for 13 from the field, 23 points, excuse me. Kobe White, 15 points on 17 shots. Wasn't really that good, but again, he's still in the running for most improved player, since he is averaging 19 points, 4 rebounds, and 5 assists. And I really think this Bulls team, they definitely have the pieces to win a lot of games and make some noise in the postseason and in the regular season. It's just for some reason they never do it, and I don't get why they just can't do it, and they don't do it. Let's see who else had a great game, and that was really pretty much it in terms of in terms of all around scoring. I mean, there is no Zach LaVine; they deactivated him for the entire season, and the fact that they're actually doing a little bit better without him raises the question: should they keep Zach LaVine, or should they get rid of him and try to get more options? I really don't know, because do you want to build your team around DeMar? If you build your team around DeMar, he's probably going to end up falling short in the postseason. I'm sorry, it's just it always happens every time I watch him, and I try to keep my chin up, and I try to be positive, but I just can't deny what my eyes are seeing and what the box scores are saying. He is just not the same animal in the postseason. But with that, we are out of time for this first segment, so I'm going to go into the second segment, where I'm going to rant about the Lakers losing to the Kings yet again, specifically ranting about Anthony Davis constantly getting outplayed by Domantas Sabonis. So I will be right back after this short break.